Welcome to the Fortified Life Podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Jason Davis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fortified Life Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify, and I'm really excited for this episode because this is a part of our new series, Tools and Resources. Yes, whenever we have a Tools and Resources episode, these are where business owners or representatives will come on and talk about something that helps you enhance how you do business or make your life better. A lot of our interviews focus on a specific business owner, author, speaker, and how they integrate faith in their work, but it's not lost on us that, hey, what are things that actually practically help you do business day to day or help you run your life better day to day? That is the purpose of a Tools and Resources episode. And that's what we're going to get into today. And so our guest is Sindy Marvin, and she's somebody who has been involved in educating and assisting people with their life throughout her professional career. And she came to prepaid legal and found her home and really nested there and has flourished. And she's going to talk to us a lot about how the running of your business is a legal situation. Sindy, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Absolutely. Now, Sindy, it's interesting for those of the old school folks who've been around a little bit in business. They've heard that name before, prepaid legal, and then they came maybe later on to know it as Legal Shield. So you mind giving us just a quick walk down memory lane and say, wait a minute, I've heard of that before. What in 2023, what is that now?
Yeah, so Prepaid Legal is actually a 50-year-old company that had one service. As many businesses or companies start out with, you've got one service, and that was called, it was Prepaid Legal, the name of the company. But the company has added on many, many services in the legal and identity theft markets for families, individuals, and small businesses. So we kind of needed to give each service a name so it wouldn't get confusing. It's kind of like if you wanted to call Procter & Gamble Tide. Well, they got a lot of products, right? So you need to call it Procter & Gamble. So we are prepaid legal services that offer Legal Shield and ID Shield as services under that umbrella.
Perfect. So we've got this big umbrella, Sindy, and I love that metaphor. Procter and Gamble, underneath you got Tide and all the different detergents and soaps and myriad of things that they do. So let's kind of start under the legal umbrella, Legal Shield. What is Legal Shield and what does it provide? And maybe let's start off on the personal side for families.
Sure, absolutely. So we provide access to an attorneys for an affordable rate for families and small businesses, but we'll talk families for right now. So, most of us are familiar with managed care. We're familiar with paying a certain amount of money, going to the doctor, paying $20, $40 copay, and getting a physical that would normally cost $1,000. Well, that's kind of crowdfunding. That's insurance. We pay a little bit, collective amount of people pay that, and you can get that service for less expensive. But we don't ever think about why we would want that for lawyers, because most people stay away from attorneys. We kind of know we need to go to the doctor, so we kind of figure out that the managed care way is the way to go. But why would you want affordable and simple access to attorneys? But that's what we do. So for a family, for $29.95 a month, we give them affordable, simple access to an attorney on a managed care platform everywhere in the U.S. for every specialty of law.
Wow. Sindy, that is amazing. $29.95. That's accessible for a lot of people. So Sindy, tell us a little bit how it works. So it's available everywhere across the United States. So if somebody's in a particular state, how do they initiate a call or initiate getting service as a member?
Yeah, so I'll start with the foundation, because I think you got to understand how something works in order to understand why you would want to use it and how to use it. So Prepaid Legal actually contracts with large law firms throughout the United States and in Canada. Here in the U.S., we are regulated by the Insurance Commission of every state. Now, we contract with this one large law firm per state. The reason we want to do that, we want to guarantee, as much as anybody can guarantee anything, that the service that we say we'll provide will be provided top notch from our attorneys. Now, our attorneys have like a tenure of about 19 years of all the attorneys that they have in those law firms. And just like I used the analogy of physicians, and a physician that you go to a managed care, it's your doctor. And you could go see that physician and pay cash. They would take it, right? So our lawyers are the same. Only one part of that law firm is dedicated specifically to Legal Shield.
Wow.
So they're a regular law firm. You could call that law firm up once you become a member and pay $350 an hour and above, or you can walk in the Legal Shield door, so to speak, and pay $29.95 a month. And once you decide, you learn about the service, because I, as you said before, I've always educated people. So what I like to do is educate people as to even why you want to use an attorney, because most of us want to not use attorneys. We aren't taught to use attorneys unless the house is burning down. So I educate people as to why they would want to use an attorney for all the different things, and we can talk about that. But once that happens and they decide to purchase the membership, right, for the coverage, then they just go online and sign up like you'd buy something on Amazon, and you're covered immediately. You can call the law firm the very next day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sindy, let's get into some of those practical use cases on, I only need an attorney when I think I need them, but I think it could be a little bit more often than what people think. Let's take a moving violation in traffic, for example. Sindy, we know we live in the illustrious city of Atlanta, Georgia, where there's quite a bit of traffic, and the more people on the road, the more propensity for things to happen. So take us through some of what can be handled with things like a moving violation.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, there's a lot of traffic. In fact, the traffic division of our law firm here in the state of Georgia is the busiest division in the whole law firm.
Wow.
And they've got 45 attorneys that are full-time just for our Legal Shield members in the state of Georgia. But yeah, like a moving traffic violation. Now, in the state of Georgia, it's a felony if you're speeding. That's why they can arrest you. I mean, you don't hear about that unless you're going like 90 to 100 miles an hour or something, as really speeding. I mean, that they don't have to arrest you if you're going 15 miles over the, speed limit, but it is a felony. Most people wouldn't understand that. But we do understand that if we get a traffic ticket, or God forbid we're involved in a car wreck, and it's our fault, we get points on our license. Mm-hmm. And, that's not good, because then that affects our car insurance. And it's especially a situation when you have young adults driving. They could lose their license very easily. We could too if you got unlucky and, got more than a couple of violations. So most people just pay for that. They go, I don't have time to go to court. I got to work, or it's in a different state. They've got a speeding ticket on the way to Florida. They're not going to go back to Florida to fight that in court. If they think it might have been unfair, maybe they were guilty, right? So what we do is we have attorneys that live in traffic court. You call them, you send over the citation right on your app, take a picture of it, send it in, and they will consult with you about it and actually go represent you in court for no charge unless it's drug or alcohol related. Now, why is that important? One, it keeps the points down. It doesn't matter if you're guilty, because there's a lot of things in the law that can help us that we aren't familiar with, right? But for instance, I had a member that was driving with her daughter down to Savannah from Atlanta, and 16 is a trap all the time. Now, mom had a new BMW, and mom was asleep in the passenger side, and daughter was driving, went through a work zone at a high speed. That was not a good situation. And she could have lost her license, and she would have had a problem getting to school. She'd have had to transfer schools. They called the law firm. The lawyer told them what to do. Of course, she had to take her traffic defense course and all that. And in this case, and not in always do you have to show up, but he knew that the judge would want to see that young lady in the courtroom, right? Well, he got it reduced to faulty accelerator of this new BMW, and mom had to pay the fine, which was fine by mom because her child got no points on her license. And that was a life changer in that situation, because she wouldn't have been able to go back and forth to school. She would have had to change schools. And that can be very costly in and of itself, no less the car insurance.
Sindy, I love that example because for all the moms out there, so your baby's driving, something happens, and the peace of mind for $29.95 a month and being able to make that type of phone call, which is something that was very serious, but also having that level of protection and a resource, someone who can talk about, here's what happened, here's what the law says, but also here are some additional options that you have access to that somebody who doesn't wouldn't be able to experience the same peace of mind. So that's an incredible story, Sindy.
Yeah, especially if any of us are out of town.
Yeah.
It happens, right? And the other thing related to that I think is extremely important in this day of time is the 24-hour access that we provide. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year if you're stopped or detained by an officer of the law. Now, any of us may not know what to do when we get stopped. So instead of saying anything, because you should zip your lips and say nothing except for be polite and say, may I have you speak to my attorney, and you can have an attorney on the phone within 3 minutes. Now that could be a car wreck, traffic stop for moving, speeding, or what they thought was speeding, or some other moving traffic violation. Or it, God forbid, could be something that we have nothing to do with, but a crime was committed and we happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And all of a sudden you are part of an investigation. And things happen. We all know, we turn on the TV every day and bad things are happening in places you would never expect. And we don't know when we might be part of it, or that someone we know is part. And and we live next door to them. Right. What do the news people do? They bombard our house, right? My own fiance had somebody who he allowed to live in his house for a week while the person was moving. He was going to hire him for a job. And in the end, it didn't work out and the guy left. But it was a gentleman, unbeknownst to Rick, that had changed his forwarding address to Rick's home. And that gentleman was involved in a police shooting in South Atlanta. And this happened in the last 8 months.
Wow.
And then that was reported because of the address to the city of Alpharetta, who then called Rick to see what he knew about the guy. And the guy had used his name as his address to buy a gun as well.
Jeez.
So you never know.
It's true.
To be involved in a legal situation. Thank God he didn't have to use his coverage, but it could have gone another way. He could have had, people at his home and I mean, just craziness, right?
Yeah. My goodness. Talk about a potentially sticky situation there, Sindy. A similar situation that can be sticky for people as well, Sindy, and that's estate planning. Now, coming out of the pandemic where many were sick and unfortunately there was a lot of loss, people actually died. It's been a little bit more on people's minds, Sindy, how short life can really be. So can you just talk about, with just the cost of what estate planning can be? I mean, some, depending on sitting down with an attorney, I mean, a will can be upwards of $1,000, $1,400 to have one prepared, but Legal Shield actually incorporates getting a will done as part of the service. So can you just walk us through what is all entailed with that?
Oh, absolutely. You bring up a wonderful point that estate planning is so vitally important because we don't know. And with the Legal Shield, we include the will, the medical directive, the healthcare power of attorney, and financial durable power of attorney. And these are all extremely important, and we don't charge any addition for it. And you get a lot of education. You can pick up the phone and call the law firm and find out what you need to do. And for business owners, it is vitally important to have all that incorporated into the will. Because what if something happens to the business owner? Who's going to get the business? Who's going to run the business? What do you do with the money? I mean, who has access to the money from the business or access to the social media accounts with the business, access to the bank accounts? If that isn't all in writing, a business which could be successful could be shut down for a while until all that gets sorted out if things aren't taken care of in estate planning way. So that's from the business side. Of course, there's the personal side. Now you have yours, mine, and ours, and people think, oh, it's okay, they're all our kids. Well, if it's a yours, mine, and ours situation and one spouse dies and there's no will, the surviving spouse and children, which the spouse that passed considered their own anyway, can get nothing. And what if somebody moved in with somebody and the house was in the other spouse's name and they never got a quick deed for it or anything else? The surviving spouse may have to sell the house to pay off the deceased spouse's children. I mean, it can be a mess, and it's not given that a surviving spouse absolutely gets everything. If there's not a will in place, the surviving spouse or children have to go to the court, pay a lawyer to have the court designate an executor or executrix. And in the meantime, all the bank accounts are shut down unless they happen to have two people's name on it, right? Sometimes an older parent will have a child's name on it. That can be good or bad depending on the legal situation, because that one child then has all the money that the parent had. And what if there are other siblings? And that one child isn't real good about giving that money to the other sibling. I mean, it can be a mess. And then even if you're going to live, estate planning is vitally important because you need somebody to handle your finances if you become ill and aren't able to pay the mortgage or pay the car payment. You don't want all those things going into foreclosure, the house going to foreclosure, or the car being repossessed, because in the interim of the person being ill and not being able to handle finances, everything shuts down because there's not a person that has legal rights to go to that bank and write checks and do all those things. And you want to avoid the emotional problem if someone is going to pass as to who makes the decisions in the hospital.
Right.
You may have family that disagrees, and then you're fighting. I had a friend that worked in a hospital during COVID, and they had to call the police on several families to pull them out of the hospital because do we pull off the life-sustaining, do we not? And then after somebody passes, one, who's going to make this decision, and what decision do they want made, right? And if even if you just don't disagree with your family members, having to make that decision and not know what that person wanted is emotionally stressful. And then after all that, their belongings, and it doesn't matter if you don't have a lot of money or not, because they're personal things in that home that may make and be important to one person or to problematically to two people.
Wow.
Want that painting or want that jewelry. And that can cause distress and dysfunction in a family that was perfectly functional before because of disagreements. So those are all reasons that are important to get it done. And normally it costs anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 to get that. And we do all of it. And we give you a will worksheet to help take you through the steps, and then you have all the consultations you want with the estate attorney.
My goodness, Sindy, you broke that down so well for us. And for those of you listening, things can get very real very quickly. And so having an estate plan helps you be prepared. I think, Sindy, I've heard it worded this way. It can come across a little bit grim, but like, let's leave things in a better place for those who are still behind, being able to grieve in peace and actually be able to love that lost one through the memories, because there's actually a plan and a course of action to handle everything in the loss. So just the physical, tangible benefits, but also the emotional benefits as well. You know,
that's perfect. Perfect.
You know, Sindy, you started touching on the business side, and I feel like that's a perfect segue, because there's a lot of, for you business owners out there, and you know, that listen to the show, there are a lot of business transactions that take place that are legal events as well. And so, Sindy, one of the ones that comes to mind are contracts and dealing with people. So we can start there, but just talk about some of the benefits of having Legal Shield, not just personally for your family, but also for your business and if you have employees.
No, absolutely. So, you know, I try to make business owners aware that running a business is a legal situation. Mm-hmm. Most businesses have talked to a lawyer when they first got their LLC or S Corp or whatever it was, and they have somebody they could call. But they're not going to call unless the house is burning down, because businesses are started off, they don't have this extra bank account that says just in case there's legal issues, right? So a lot of times as we go to the doctor preventatively to make good decisions about our health, you want good decisions made for your business, whether you're starting one, growing it, or sustaining it. And, you know, sometimes in businesses you move, maybe you grow and you get new property. There's leases to be looked at. You might have security cameras. That's a contract. You're getting, providing product or services to other people. And that's usually involved a contract, or someone's giving you their contract to review. And you may be somebody that has done it forever and ever. But you know what? Lawyers spend a lifetime of profession studying the law, because the law changes. And what you knew 5 years ago may not be what it is today. And you're going on an assumption, or you own a franchise and you just take what the franchisor or, you know, gave you and think that's fine. But what if it doesn't match what the state regulations are in the state that you do business, or you do business in other states? So we look at contracts up to 15 pages, no charge, and we'll look at a lot bigger ones and give you a discounted rate for that. Hiring and firing employees. Oh my God, there's hundreds of laws on the books. I've had business owners who fired employees and then hear from the Labor Commission because that fired employee said something that really didn't happen. All of a sudden, the business owner has to respond, and they're not sure what they should say. And they want to do it in a correct way. Or they have a problematic employee or a problematic client that they wish they never had, or an employee they wish they never had. But they want to know legally how to deal with it so that it doesn't come back and bite them in the way of lawsuits or something. So that's where the preventative, the information, so you know what to say to handle the situation in the best way to protect yourself, your family, and your business. Because people can go after your family if they're going after your business. Sure. And so you want to make sure all that, any transactions that you do. Now, it may be, you know, professional where you're buying equipment there and you're leasing it. That's a contract. Or you're getting a service. I've heard of some bookkeeping things that if you don't, you're signing the paperwork, or, you know, it'll renew automatically for 5 years after the first year. And maybe you didn't realize that was in fine print. I've had it happen with companies that do shredding for companies. And they signed this contract. Now they want to use another company because this first company didn't really turn out to be what they liked. And this could apply to numerous things that businesses hire on different vendors. And can they get out of the contract? They think they can. Maybe they can.
Mm-hmm.
But, you really should have those contracts looked at ahead of time. And this is sad to say that many people that provide services don't get paid for those services.
Mm.
Besides, I don't want to pay you. Or they don't pay on time. And what do you do about it? Send it to a debt collector, spend all your time trying to call them or have your staff write letters and nothing happens? When they get a letter from an attorney, they're much more likely to pay that bill. Now, there's no guarantee, right? Mm-hmm. Or what if somebody sues you? We have some lawsuit protection that you can buy as well. Many types of businesses, especially roofers, contractors, plumbers, those service industries get sued easily because people think they're made of money and think, well, I'll end up not having to pay. If I threaten to sue, they'll just settle with me. And, if you have prepaid trial and pre-trial and trial hours, you can pick up the phone and not worry about, what it's going to cost and just settle right away when you're in the right. So we do, and then we write letters on your behalf to all the people that, like the debt collection letters, or maybe it's you bought equipment that's not working and they're giving you a hard time returning it, or you returned it and they're forever giving you the credit, right? And you're going, it's been 3 months. You keep telling me you're going to do this and you haven't. It's frustrating, and a business owner has much more to do than spend time fighting with either clients, past employees, trying to get back their money from companies and all that. So those are many things that we do for businesses.
Absolutely. My goodness, Cindy. So Legal Shield is a value add, both personally and professionally. Now, Cindy, I'm going to take us back to that canopy metaphor, that umbrella from earlier. So prepaid legal. Underneath, we have Legal Shield. And then we also have what we're about to touch on here in a second, ID Shield. And we know we'll kind of start off here because it's a growing, not to mince words, Cindy, but another kind of silent pandemic out there is identity theft. And so just talk about just the growing concerns from a privacy standpoint and how ID Shield can help not just business owners, but even on the personal side, and what some of the impacts are.
Yeah. So I've actually worked in the identity theft market for 18 years. I've been doing trainings on it. And when I started, people looked at me like I was crazy. What is that? Now, everybody, like you said, knows it's this growing problem out there. I mean, just our text and emails alone for phishing.
Yeah.
People hacking into our social media, and they come in acting like a friend of ours. And then we think that they're a friend sending us something. And it seems reasonable to click on that link that the friend sent, which can send us down a dark hole where they take over our phones, they take over our computers, and then your life is a mess, So just that alone shows us that the criminals are out there. But how do you protect yourself? One, you got to smarten up and not click on links or click on things in emails, right? But we can't prevent it because these folks are smart and they run it as businesses. So we need to mitigate any damages that we can. And that has to do with making sure that nobody's opened up accounts in our name. Nobody's using our social, our medical ID, our emails, our phone numbers, our passports, our driver's license, our credit cards, right? We want to make sure none of that is going across the dark web, because if it does, somebody's buying and selling our information for nefarious purposes. Themselves money, committing crimes, using our health insurance. So we hear mostly about financial identity theft. Somebody, uses our credit card. How many times? I think all of us could raise our hands and go, oh yeah, I've replaced my credit card numerous times. Well, that one isn't such a bad thing as far as being able to take care of it, right? If somebody charged incorrectly and you report it, I just had it happen the other day. For me, I found something on my credit card. It was only $14.95 charge. If I didn't look at my credit card closely, I might have missed it for a couple months. I have a lot of those recurring things, that are about that cost, right? So, but the credit card company took it off and gave me a new credit card, no big deal. But it can become a big deal if somebody opens up cards and you don't know about it. And then your creditors come after you. Plus now your debt to income ratio changes and your credit tanks. Now it can affect you poorly in lots of areas, but let's take the business owner just on the financial. We'll talk about that right now, and I'll talk about others in a minute. But financially, if a business owner isn't watching what's going on with their identity, somebody could have done all this nefarious activity, tanked their credit score. They wouldn't know. And let's say it's a dentist, for example, that now wants to invest in new equipment. They're moving, they're getting the newest stuff, and now they can't buy it because their credit score is in the hole, or they want to move, or they want to do business with a company or a business owner wants to do business with a company that's going to check their credit to see, people check your social media, check your credit, and it's bad. They may not be able to purchase things that they need to do their business. People may not want to do business with them. Or what if they just need a bridge loan because they want to purchase things? They got a big job and they need extra supplies and they don't have a lot of cash on hand right away. Now they can't get the loan either. And those same things can happen with individuals. All of a sudden you want to buy a new car because your car got in a car crash. You need a new car and your credit is in the hole because you didn't know. Renting a house, buying a house, somebody getting a job, wanting to hire them, or a young adult wanting to get a loan to go to school. So you need to pay attention to your credit. It affects your mortgage rate, your insurance rate. It's for cars and for homes. It affects a lot. So you want your credit reviewed. You want all the things that affect your credit, with your financials being reviewed on an ongoing basis. So if something happens, you can mitigate it getting worse and you can fix it. Because what if somebody opened up 5 AT&T accounts in your name? Calling AT&T saying, it's not me. That is your social, your driver's, your address. They're not believe you. But with our ID Shield, not only do we look at everything about you and monitor and alert you if something goes awry or, things are on the dark web, but we work with only private investigators to take care of it and get you back to where you were for as long as it takes. And we talk to that AT&T and we say, John Smith wasn't isn't the person that opened that account. Somebody using his name. Also, and I just talked to somebody the other day, their name's very common, and they got stopped for speeding, and the police officer said, there's a bench warrant on your name. The police officer could have arrested him right then and there, but she said to him, you don't have blonde hair and blue eyes, so I'm assuming you aren't this person that had a DUI up in Connecticut that didn't show up in court. Now, if it wasn't a nice police officer, they don't have to match the profiles. They could have arrested him. From that point, he had to make sure he had paperwork on him to prove that he wasn't the person that has all these arrest warrants out in their name.
Thank goodness.
So it's financial, it's criminal. I had someone just last month come to me as a new client whose Aetna medical insurance was used at the North Georgia Medical Center in the ER. Racked up a ton of bills. Took him 4 months to fix it with Aetna and the hospital. But he didn't have our coverage. We would have handled that. Now, the other part, which he is using with us, is now his medical record is totally not his medical record. And they won't tell him what the person went into the ER for. If it was a laceration, it wouldn't have mattered. If it's congestive heart failure, diabetes, or God knows what, now if he goes to get new medical insurance or he wants to get life insurance, all that's on his medical record, and it may not be possible unless he gets that changed. And we help with that as well. And I mentioned social media. That's important for personally or business. Your reputation, people look at that. They want to do business with you. And if that's not good and there's bad posts or nefarious things being said, not good. We monitor every post and every picture on your social media, any social media that you give us to monitor, and we will give you a reputation score, and we will alert you if there's a problem. So we do employment identity theft if somebody gets employment in your name and doesn't pay taxes. We do criminal, financial. IRS, we can walk you through what you need to do, but they won't let us do it because the IRS only handles that themselves. But you can call us and we go, okay, now you got to call the IRS. This is what you do. And we will do a lot of the work other than the IRS stuff. We do it all for you with those private investigators. I mean, if you had bad credit to start, you'll have that credit that we'll get you back to. But we also do credit counseling. And if you have the Legal and ID Shield, we'll do credit counseling, help you understand your credit score better, how you can get it up, and also help you with your finances if you need our help with that.
Such a thorough service, Sindy, and especially having the combo. So Legal Shield, $29.95. How much is ID Shield, and is there like a bundle situation that you can get with these?
Well, the ID Shield is $19.95 a month for a single person, and the ID Shield family is $34.95. Now, in the legal, we do cover any immediate family and children up through the age of 26, so through 25. If they're not married, living at home and working, or in school full-time outside of the home. Now, it's a little different on the ID Shield. We cover through the age of 26 just for monitoring and restoration. Once someone turns 18, they need their own coverage in order to do the monitoring, because by that time they have their own credit, and it's extremely important for young adults. One thing I forgot to mention that's also included is we give an antivirus, give a password manager, and a virtual private network so that you can go out and use public Wi-Fi with protection between you, the public Wi-Fi, and your computer, so hackers don't get in the public Wi-Fi and get into your computer, see what you're doing, and then take over everything and have your passwords, your emails, passwords, and all that, and can hack into your accounts. You do not want that happening. And we have a password manager so you can encrypt all your passwords to prevent that from happening, and also the VPN if you're using the public Wi-Fi to protect you.
Such solid information, Sindy. This is huge. I mean, who wouldn't get something like what these services provide, but not just because of how good the product is, but again, Sindy, I keep thinking about the phrasing peace of mind. That's what keeps coming back. So whether it's financial, criminal, on business or personal, Legal Shield and ID Shield under the umbrella of prepaid legal services. It sounds like this is a great service to help people with life management. My goodness, Sindy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as a business owner, if you have employees, you can provide these services to the employees at a discounted rate. And we do some bundle discounts there. And it's, like the legal plan goes down to $21.95, for example. And the ID Shield goes down $4 or $5, depending on if it's a bundled plan or not. And that's great for employees, because a lot of business owners want to keep their employees. So it's hard to keep talent, but they can't afford, the big stuff, health insurance, dental insurance, for their employees. But this is something that they could easily pay for, or have the employee pay for. Because just for an employee to get their will done, that's a great savings for the employee, and it's a great benefit, even if the employee pays for it out of their paycheck. And you do a payroll deduction. So we do have that available as well.
Wow. Even employee benefit. Wow. Huge. Well, Sindy, you have added tremendous value today. We know that you're a very busy lady, so we won't hold you. Folks, we're going to have links in the show notes to each product and service. So we'll have links for ID Shield and Legal Shield, and we'll have breakdowns of everything that they provide, the pricing plans, and all of that. So don't you worry. So fortifiedlifepodcast.com or jerichoforce.com/podcast under the blog section, we'll have all the information that Sindy is talking about. But lastly, Sindy, you've added so much value. What if somebody personally wants to reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Oh, well, that's easy. So if you can Google me, easy. It's like in Sam, Indy, Sindy. I spell it a little bit differently. Marvin, Marvin. But my phone number, please feel free to call me, is 404-401-9189. Or my email is Sindy with the S, Sindy, M for man, 1204 @gmail. Either way, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn and reach out that way. Because if you Google me, you'll find that as well. So email me, call me, reach me on LinkedIn. Be happy to respond and provide you with information so you can make an educated decision of whether these services could benefit your family and or your business.
Love it, Sindy. Folks, I can promise you, my wife and I have known Sindy for years now, and there is no one else that is more willing to help you with what you have going on in your life. She is an educator. She is a helper. She is a teacher, and she just loves people. So I can say that personally about her. So Sindy, thank you so much for coming on the Fortified Life for a tools and resources episode.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, Jason, and I look forward to helping anybody that has any questions.
Sure thing. Well, folks, you know how we leave things on the Fortified Life podcast. Again, thank you shout out to Sindy for coming on. This has been a tools and resources series here on the podcast. But remember, don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. And remember, from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out fortifieddlifepodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business. Available on Amazon.
You are listening to Jerusalem Worldwide Podcast.